Hello and welcome to this episode of Community Voices Uganda on Civic Space TV. I am Philip Mulissa. This episode, we are having a conversation about the state of Uganda's agricultural sector, and certainly we all know that there is a new financial year running. We had budget reading the other day, and certainly in a couple of days we should be rolling up on the older financial year, and certainly laying out and getting into the new financial year and counting new money, counting new opportunities, and certainly looking at new progress and development for this beautiful country, Uganda. And certainly over the years, we've had a series of stories, including the fact that agriculture is actually the backbone of the Ugandan economy. And certainly for the many years we've had this, today want to make an assessment of what this backbone actually is and certainly what it means for the economy of Uganda. And joining me to make sense of that and more about this sector is a one of distinguished citizens of this beautiful country, Uganda, whom I will give an opportunity to say hello to you, our viewers, and certainly get into the depth of the conversation. I will start with a journalist. I have someone who deals with information here on the show, and that is none other than Ronald Goodluck Musinguzi. Goodluck, greetings and welcome to the conversation.
Thank you very much. Good morning. It's a chilly day, but we thank God because as we are going to talk about agriculture, rain is part of what makes agriculture move on. And as you have said, our agriculture really needs more support because all of us need a meal at some point in the day. And therefore, that's how important it is. And I'm glad to be part of this. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Good luck. And we also honored to always have you on this conversation. I do have to Lydia Alupo. Lydia, greetings. Welcome to the conversation. And how is where you are?
Good morning. Here over it's also chilly, and we shall be talking about one of the most vital sector in Uganda, in Uganda's economy, that gives us about 26.42 of Uganda's exports.
All right, thank you, Lydia, for joining us certainly. And later we expect to be joined by Mr. Edward Natamba from SOWIPA, and certainly we'll see what he will be able to contribute to the conversation. But quickly, you see, whenever the budget is read, everyone is looking at how is the sector to which I'm most connected to being looked at the administrative and policy level, and in terms of how much money is allocated to that particular sector. But in this one, like Goodluck says, everyone at a particular point in the day will want to have a plate filled with something, and certainly they will be able to take it in for survival. But even beyond that, there are people who, apart from the eating directly and from this particular sector, in terms of farmers, in terms of people that do the trading in agricultural produce, in terms of people that do extension services in the agriculture sector, but also broadly other sectors feed into this sector, including the transport sector in terms of transporting the produce, the banking sector in terms of lending out, but also doing the banking for agricultural producers, taking care of their money and making sure they invest rightly, and more other sectors that are linked to this particular sector. And I want to start with you, Goodluck. Look, the backbone of the economy, like they have told us since time immemorial. I remember in primary school, my teacher would say agriculture is the backbone of the economy, and they kept saying it employs over 70% of the population. First of all, is that still the standing? Is agriculture still the backbone of this economy? And does it employ that much people? And in doing that, help me understand how important this sector is important vis-a-vis all the other sectors of the economy. Yes, good luck.
Thank you very much. I think agriculture remains a cornerstone or a foundation of this country that to an extent that even when people who have worked in all the sectors and maybe they want to retire, you find that most of the times they retire in agriculture. And therefore, it remains, because if you remember during COVID, actually 10 years before COVID, there had been reports that Uganda would not feed itself by 2021. And if you remember, that's when the OWC was using that report, that they were asked to make sure that there is quite a lot of production. Now, taking us through COVID, if we didn't have food, I don't know what would have happened. We were not exporting, but I remember where I was staying, for 2,000 shillings, you would get a basin of matoke. And while, earning was a problem, things were just the way they were, everybody can use their own description, but at least we managed to have some food. And I remember that distribution of food for those people maybe in the urban areas, it also, so food is now, any country that cannot feed its people, even every parent, a school, a church, name it, a community, that you find you can't feed your people, it's the most degrading thing in the human setup. I don't know whether it's a human setup, but in the way we are, that all of us, you would wish to have a meal in the morning. If you can't make it at break time, at least have lunch, or eventually have something before you go to sleep. And therefore, Uganda has been blessed with the water bodies. If you talk of Lake Victoria and the other lakes, the rivers, and the good soils. If you went to Napak in Karamoja, I saw where Pastor Kayanja came in at the time when there were some issues of hunger, and he got combined harvesters that open up so much acreage. Now, one day I walked into one of the fields on the main road from Katakwi to Napak and Moroto. I touched the soils. If you were in school and you are being told of Rome soils, I don't know, Rome soils might not be found easily these days because of but in Karamoja there are places where it was the first time since the world was created to be cultivated. And you could see what they call Rome soil. And so we are so blessed that we have that. Yes, so many people are employed there, but of course also the other challenge is that the able-bodied, the people who are taking on to other sectors, for example, the border sector, you find that maybe those are the ones. But also you find here in town, for example, in the city, somebody makes money and he's sending some money home to pay for the some people to till the land. And even like in Kabale district where I come from, the rates of those who till the farms has sort of doubled, or in some areas tripled. That what used to be paid for a day now is paid maybe for half a day. And therefore, something is happening. So for me, the advantage, to conclude on this, is that when you find that we feed our people here, but also we feed another 1.8 million refugees who have come from these other countries because of so much that is happening there, then I believe that without agriculture, it seems we are nowhere. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Good luck for that. And certainly you paint a picture of how important this is in terms of how it feeds our people, but also how important it is for a community to be able to at least handle the challenges of feeding its own people, because without that, then certainly that cannot be a sustainable community. Thank you. But something important you raised is about Karamoja is the fact that some of the soil that was being tilled under the auspices of Pastor Kayanja and his institution, it was the first time this land was being tilled, and certainly so. There is a report by the Food and Agriculture Organization that says 40% of Uganda's arable land until now is untapped, and that is a very huge percentage of land. 40% is quite a huge lump sum of land, and I hope that land was not part of this statistic that I've just looked at. And Lydia, I want to hear from you. When you listen to that, you have, it is important for people to have food, but you have communities that are very food insecure. And again, there is a statistic about 23% of Ugandans are food insecure. And you have a lot of land that is untapped. Nothing is happening there, yet it can be used for agriculture. What does it even mean for the peoples of Uganda and certainly the government to have idle land when they can actually use it for agricultural productivity? Yes, Lydia.
Okay, thank you so much, Philip. So, first of all, I would you earlier on asked a question whether agriculture is still Uganda's backbone. So, to me, I would really say that Uganda's agriculture sector is still a very vital part of Uganda's economy. And we see it employing like 70% of the working population and also contributing to the exports in the country. And also we see that, to give you some statistics, we see that on the agricultural sector contribution to the GDP, we see it's 26.42% of Uganda's exports. And also we see employment. Under the employment, we have about 70% of the working population is employed in agriculture. So with the household income, we have about 68.9 of the household engage in subsistence farming. So I think you talked about idle land. I think there are why some people still have idle land. Some of the challenges we have is the digital transformation, leveraging through the digital technologies to improve on agricultural productivity. And then also we see that maybe we should expand the market access for the farmers and agribusinesses. Then also we should improve on the productivity. So that is increasing the land productivity and value addition to this agricultural products. So and maybe what we can also is trying to engage the private sector investment and for them also to participate in agriculture. So all these things, when we total them up, we shall be able to engage more people to use their idle land. For example, when there's digital transformation, the market access is wide. So I think those are some of the things. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much, Lydia, for that. And you make very good recommendations in terms of what should assist this sector to match the standard that it is required to be on, and certainly make sure that it continues to sustain the economy and produce actually the most important food, like Ronald here told us. But I want to hear from you, and first I welcome you, Mr. Natamba. Thank you for joining us. Greetings. If you can say something to confirm that you can hear me.
Oh, yeah. Thank you very much, Philip. Hope you can hear me.
Yes. Yes, you're very welcome, sir. And I want to quickly pick from you.
Thank you very much. Yes, please.
The agriculture sector that is said to hold 70% of the population, and certainly they keep mentioning how it is the backbone of the economy. This backbone, because if it holds 70%, indeed, that is a percentage that should reflect entirely what the standard and the status of the peoples of Uganda look like. I want you to make a comparison of this sector to the people of Uganda, is it a sector that Ugandans are proud of, and certainly a sector that should actually be looked at as one that sustains the peoples of Uganda, and perhaps is it to the standard of sustaining the people? Yes, Edward. Edward, I think your internet is quite unstable. If you can shift a bit and make sure you have a more stable location, and I think we have actually now lost you.
Philip,
Yeah, yeah. I think we
I
had
don't know why
lost
my
you.
internet keeps on jack.
Yes, yes, your internet is quite challenged. I don't know whether you need to shift a little bit or to make sure we can hear you so well, because we need to be able to get what you are trying to contribute to the conversation so well. And as you do that, I will, in the meantime, listen to Goodluck here. Goodluck, you see, government has over time put some money in the agriculture sector, but of course, but also you hear voices that say what government is doing is actually not enough. And when you look at, for example, this incoming financial year, government tells you we've set up a series of financial hubs to make sure there is input in the agriculture sector, including the parish involvement model, including EMIOGA circle framework, including creating agricultural zonal hubs, including creating an agricultural credit facility where there is money for people involved in commercial agriculture to be able to access cheap credit. What's your thought on, first of all, some of these initiatives government keeps bringing up to improve the agriculture sector, but two, have they over time, because there have been many, including NADS, Operation Wealth Creation, to mention, do you think they've served the purpose for which government keeps setting them up? Yes, Goodluck.
Thank you very much. The money might not look so much, but remember, we add on almost over 2 million people each year. Children who are born, sometimes we have come from 1.6 million children to now 2.6 million children, 2.63 to 3 million children. Now, over the years, those you have to feed those people. So the investment, this other side, might be looked as if it is not moving, but like I said in the preamble, by the fact that we are still feeding ourselves, that's what should give us the hope that things are not bad. Because if we were, facing most of the parts, facing hunger and all those kinds of things, would be challenged. Now, I think over the years is that we have to look at the improvement, the value that we add on the products. So, for example, last year we managed to produce over 4 million bags of coffee to almost 7.4. It was 4.46 million bags to 6.95 million bags. That was an increment of 56% in 1 year. There was another increment of maize, 85%, where we produced 2.6 metric tons a year before, to 5 million metric tons of what? Of maize. And therefore, that one shows you that there is some progress. When you go in the sugar sector, there are times when we have had fluctuations in prices, sugar was going up, but now you can see the prices have been maintained for some time. And even we went further to produce what they call white sugar. White sugar is the one which is being used by companies like Coca-Cola, Pepsi-Cola, and all that. And therefore, there is some progress, but then there is another voice. There are other people who are saying, how do we focus on agriculture, on export-led agriculture? When you look at the prices in the UK, for example, for a bunch of matoke, not a bunch, No, these are the small things. I don't know. I know it in Uganda,
Cluster.
but a cluster, yes, a cluster goes for like 6 to 7 pounds. So now you talked that agriculture links to other sectors. So for example, they have put Uganda Airlines. It's over now a month since they opened. How can we make sure that at least our matoke is going and is fetching that much more money? So when you say that you want to develop the economy to a 500 billion economy, the question must be, how much value are you adding on this product? And I was reading a report somewhere which was saying we have added 32 export items in the last 10 years. But unfortunately, the value, our value to those commodities is not matching. So for example, if somebody sells you an iPhone, I don't know, I don't hold one. I don't know if the ladies can tell us, but I don't know how much it is these days. But if I can give a rudimentary price of like 5 million, a phone, and then so for 5 million shillings, how much coffee are you going to export when it is low? Maize and all that. So you can see that we need to add the value to these products. But also, there is something that at some point, if you have gone to our markets, there are times when you find the potatoes are from Kenya. The mangoes, I don't know, those are the most ones I normally see when you go to the market. And so for me, I find it that even when we say that we are doing very well, if we don't take on, for example, irrigation. I was seeing a video last night of an irrigation farm in Kazo. Kazo is in the cattle corridor, but this person has used irrigation, and he has managed, and he was showing a vast some land with a watermelon in the cattle corridor. So it means that if we put more emphasis on irrigation, so that, because when we eat, we don't eat in seasons. We have fast feed here, but then we must also add value to our products. So now, in terms of funding of these other sweeteners, or the money that is given to those who can go for it and improve on, yes, the money is there. For example, I've seen in this budget, they have been given almost 2 trillions for the sector. But now my question is that, for example, places like Karamoja, which need, because for them they have the land, they need mechanization. How are we making sure? Because I've seen the distribution of tractors here and there, buying of machinery. And by the way, the other thing is that Uganda Revenue Authority, when you are importing a vehicle purposely for agriculture, they don't tax it. And therefore, it is also another thing we should celebrate. Lastly, on this
point, thank you. But look, Goodluck.
Yes.
Whereas we keep mentioning, and quickly will involve SOWIPA here. Whereas you keep talking about, for example, that incentive from Uganda Revenue Authority, and suddenly the monies and how they are able to create that little but step-by-step additions, creating the volumes you talk about. Even in the country itself, you yourself earlier here talked about the time when there was inadequacy of food in the Karamoja sub-region. And if a country that can produce that much still has regions that do not have enough food, and what does it even mean for these policies? How do you celebrate policies yet your own peoples in the country do not have food to feed on?
I think the export markets, because there is when we get, I think, overwhelmed, depending. So for example, if you see the coffee prices, They were up last in this financial year that is ending. And looks like when the weather is good in other countries, Vietnam and all these other places, the prices might begin. So sometimes you have challenges like in countries like Kenya, Djibouti, up to Zambia, when there's no food. And the pressure of looking for food here becomes so much. And in the end, we get such a problems. But for me, lastly on this, I want to talk about the young people. As we say, 75% of the young people are between 30 and less. How do we convince these able-bodied people to go? For example, when you go to the Karamoja region, vast lands that are owned communally, you don't even need to ask for permission to go and do the farming. How can we have those energies instead of going for vices like cattle rustling and maybe these other things that you see in towns? How do we have young people being incentivized, put incentives so that they go and really put their efforts on this, so that we have a surplus and then we are able to export? And I was telling you, I like chips. And so sometimes you go to the market to buy and you find that they are Kenyan potatoes. And I think that's where I agree with you that whoever is in the sector must work harder or double or triple their efforts, because also, as I told you, the numbers are growing. We are not 20, we are now going 50 million. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And Edward, do you hear me well now? Edward, can you hear me?
Yes, Philip, I can hear you now.
Yes, I want you to speak to this idea of, first of all, how much government is investing in this particular sector, and certainly how you could assess the performance of these initiatives government keeps bringing up in the agriculture sector, and certainly are they the suitable initiatives to drive progressive development, growth, and sustainability for a sector that feeds the economy, but also looks into feeding the region, like Ronald told us here, and certainly going for other markets in Europe and the Americas. Yes, Edward.
Yeah, thank you very much, Philip. And I really want to also thank other speakers on this important topic. Philip raised a very important question. First of all, I think I want to commend that government, of course, every year it has continued to do its work of approving budgets. But now the challenge we have to look at whether budgets, as parliamentarians sit together to approve and pass this budget, they should be thinking of the person down there. Philip and dear speakers, first of all, I think we are still failing to raise a good percentage of funding to agriculture. However much we committed ourselves to Maputo Declaration that it should raise 10%, the funding should raise 10%, but we are still really down. And you know, you have been saying it, that agriculture is the backbone.
If you allow me just to feed up that particular point of the Maputo Declaration, just recently Uganda hosted the conference of African Agriculture Development Program here in Munyonyo, and we are the leaders today in advocating for that 10% investment in agriculture, but certainly even in the new budget, you see that we barely have 3%. If you may,
you can imagine, and that's the starting point I want to start to. I don't know whether our parliamentarians really try correlate whatever we commit our country to than what we pass in this parliament, because these things should be connecting. But we are in a country where you find that legislators, especially most of them, don't even read, don't even internalize, don't discuss at length this budget as they are going to pass it. I'm saying this because really I'm looking at the funds that are going specifically in agriculture. For example, we have some factories that have been built across the country. We have in Bushenyi, we have a banana factory. We have in Tungamo, we have a pineapple factory. I have been in a post-dialogue budget in Fort Portal, and a number of districts have these factories. But I want us to ask ourselves right now, how sustainable are these factories? How many are functioning? Because if I can use an example of our factory in Tungamo, we don't have raw materials right now. Pineapples are being sold to Southern Sudan. Farmers load their pineapples to Southern Sudan when the government has put a lot of money in the construction of that factory. To me, as a local person, I would wish to see government putting more money, more incentives to farmers to make sure that the pineapples, the bananas we grow here, the fruits we grow here, we get farmers get incentives to make sure that they don't sell them to any other person. We add value to them and make sure they start earning. Right now in Ntungamo, the batch of matoke is less than 3,000, the big one, 3,000, 4,000, because we have entered in a dry season. Now the budget has been read. What is the government doing to make sure that they add value to those matoke if we are to export and increase exports?
Edward, if you may help us, is it easier to sell something in Southern Sudan than it is to sell it to the factory? What is the inspiration behind that? Is it about price? Is it about the journey? Is it about what inspires these farmers to opt for Southern
Thank you
Sudan
very
rather
much.
than the country?
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. The issue is all about the prices. Because because we have intermediary, these persons, these people who manage the market between the farmers and the wholesaler. So if government is not giving some good price to the farmer doesn't see the value of selling its government than selling it to Southern Sudan, because those people in Southern Sudan will come with some prices higher than the government. So to me, they should be looking at that angle right now, Philip and listeners and viewers. Coffee in our country, I think, I don't know whether it is the whole country, but in our region, coffee started when it was at 4,000. Just you harvest coffee from your coffee tree, immediately take it to any person at the factory. When it is raw, not yet dried, not yet done what, they give you 4,000. But it has reached to 2,500, 3,000. So I'm asking, after reading this budget, how does it impact, how does it help farmers, especially smallholder farmers who are very many in this country, to make sure that really they see value in farming, or they are being demoralized? There is also climate change, because climate change is very key, especially in agriculture. They have put some funds. Yes, we appreciate climate change, but what does it do, especially at local level in the districts? We have these committees at the district on climate change. They are not functioning, headed by COW. They are not functioning. So are we seeing any funds coming from this current budget of 2025, 2026, coming down to make sure that this climate change impacts are mitigated, because they affect much in agriculture? Do we even have some activities on ground that can mitigate climate change, apart from development partners like European Union, African Development Bank? Because when they put some funds in our districts, you will see some impact, you see a project running. So we want to see these projects initiated by government to make sure that they are helping climate change. And before I conclude, Philip, we have been in Chigazi last week celebrating the World Food Safety Day. And here farmers were crying about pesticides, about agro-input dealers. So to me, as Edward, my opinion, from this budget, if we had support agriculture, we should be looking into all those intermediaries. If there is poor inputs in agriculture, how do we mediate? How does this budget help Ugandans to make sure that they get the real inputs, they get the real pesticides, so that our food is safe, first of all, to compete in the global market? Are we putting any efforts? Because it should not be ceremonial to be reading a budget and approve it every year when it is not impacting to a farmer. And lastly, roads, UNRA actually, the roads of UNRWA in our southwestern region are almost dying. All of them. I saw on Tuesday, people of Ushenyi were demonstrating on the tarmac road. That road from Mbarara to Ishaka, it is
But I
totally
think
dead.
now that is
So
not a
how
problem you're
how do
addressing.
farmers really see it transporting their produce to the market? I beg your
Thank you.
pardon?
Thank you so much, Edward. But certainly, as on that concluding remark, since UNRWA was disbanded,
Yes,
certainly
please.
that is an issue we addressed to the Ministry of Works and Transport, because it took over all the
Yes.
responsibility that was meant for UNRWA. I think we've lost Lydia in the meantime, but I hope she reconnects. I know we have serious connectivity challenges here and there, but I hope it is worked on and we reconnect with her. Good luck. I want to hear from you. One of the challenges that has been associated with our agriculture sector is the land tenure system, and broadly speaking to the nature of ownership of land, but also more specifically our fragmentation structure. You have 2 acres of land. When you go away, it is divided into 40 or 4 sons. Then when one of the sons goes away, also distributes. And by the end of the day, realize every person is owning just a small piece of land which cannot be used for constructive agriculture. I want to hear your thoughts about our land ownership structure. And earlier you mentioned how it's communally owned, for example, in Karamoja, but when you get to other parts of the country, it is individual ownership. Every person has a very small piece of land, and certainly this cannot produce anything big to be used even for feeding on, but also the commercial agriculture that government keeps singing. So good luck. First of all, what's your reaction to this land tenure system, but also how can it be improved to match the standard we need to have as we look at sustainable agriculture and indeed food security?
Thank you very much. I think if we have failed on anything, we have failed on the management of land. I ran away from Chigezi region because literally there is no land left. I have not gotten any piece of land. I think the small part of land I got from my place, it was somebody who stays there grabbed it, and I just said, let me. So land is a challenge, a very big challenge. Here, when it comes to Uganda, it's everybody is coming here. You hear of cases and you can't manage, you can't know what is happening. When you go to northern Uganda, for example, in the Acholi region, they are saying that you hear the issue of Walaro, and they have these vast idle lands that are there, but then they are saying these people must leave. So the issue of land is something, it's a topic I fear. I personally, I don't own land. And therefore, what you're saying is true, is that, for example, those in the urban setups, what type of agriculture can they do? For example, rearing chicken, maybe goats, maybe doing this other, using sacks, for example, to plant onions and tomatoes, but then open up this other land for mechanization, to allow us again add value on it when we are tilling it, so that we are able to gain from it. So, for example, when you look at the pre-release and the vast farms in Ukraine, Russia, you feel that really we have not done any justice. When you move to Chiriandongo, you find there are some companies which have really accessed square miles of land, and they are able to do big production. And I think also in Noya district, on that axis, as you go to West Nile, you see big farms that have big silos. where after harvesting, they keep their food, whatever they harvest there. So my thinking is that there are many communities need to be taken for benchmarking. People to know that doing agriculture on fragmented land will not help us. So for example, me who is in more of media that is more on the technology, on the using technology in whatever I do, I find that I might not necessarily need land for agriculture. And to those who have put their need in agriculture, how do we, for example, maybe government acquires land and it leases out. Lastly, on this point, I want to tell you one thing, that one of the big institutions that is doing well with agriculture and land is the Uganda prisons. They have opened vast lands out there. They are producing so much that at one point, if you added them more land, Uganda prisons can feed this country. So on the issue of land, and with the land issues that I hear every day, I think there we have really failed. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, thank you. Good luck for that. And certainly it is a big question of land, and looking forward, the government needs to see how that can be addressed, because it is one of the things that will contribute greatly to sustainable agriculture and indeed the growth of the country. Lydia, I'm glad you are back. See, again, another challenge that rises with our sector is the question of low productivity, and there are many things that are linked to that particular challenge. And one of them is what Goodluck referred to earlier when he said you don't have many young people involved in this particular sector. It is left for the aging population who do not have enough energy, enough ideas, and access to modern technologies to be able to implement in this particular sector. First of all, how do you think this question of the young, the youth, the energetic running away from the agricultural sector can be addressed? Because in the end, Uganda, as one that has about 86% of its land arable, should be looking into taking up the very high demand of organic products on the world market. What can be done to change this course? Yes, Lydia.
Thank you so much. So to me, I think, first of all, what causes low productivity among the youth in the agricultural sector? This can be attributed to factors such as lack of interest. Many young people may not find agriculture appealing due to the perceived low returns, the hard labor, and limited career opportunities. And also we see that there is limited access to resources. So this youth may face challenges like in accessing land, the finance, the technology, and other essential resources. And then also we see that there is insufficient training and skills. These young farmers lack necessary knowledge pertaining agriculture, and also they lack training to adopt modern agricultural practices. Then also we see the unattractive working conditions. So we see that agriculture can be physically demanding with long hours and limited social amenities. So how we are going to address this low productivity among the youth? Maybe we can see agricultural education and training. So we need to provide this youth with relevant skills and knowledge. And alongside that, we also need to access to finance and resources. We see that maybe government can try offering loans to the young farmers, these grants, then also mentorship programs. So we see that pairing these young farmers with experienced mentors. So through those, when we pair these young farmers with the experienced mentors, we see that their interest will have increased. Then also we see we should modernize the agriculture, introducing technology, innovative practices. Then also creating creating the what entrepreneurial opportunities, encouraging the youth to set up their own agricultural businesses. I think that's what I can say. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Lydia, for that. But quickly, if you allow me, for example, when you say skills to the young people, at least I know for the many times I've been in school, and even now that I just observe people that are learning, there is a subject called agriculture. And through this subject, I understand people are taught all to do with agriculture. They have the knowledge, and whereas I know it is an optional subject at a certain level, but there are even young people who have chosen to continue with it to higher levels of learning. What sort of skills are not available for these young people? And two, when you talk about resources and money, government is telling us that there is a lot of money in terms of the Mioga initiative, in terms of operation wealth creation, in terms of putting some money in the Uganda Development Bank and all the other banks to make sure there is access to some sort of cheap funding, and there is provision of tractors at district levels. What sort of improvement and simplification of this resource allocation mechanism do you think can assist the young people to get actually attracted and involved in the agriculture sector? Yes, Lydia.
Oh, thank you so much. So I think the skills I was referring to, maybe some of the skills we can have is on the agricultural technology. So knowledge on how to use this farming digital tools. Then also the skill of business management, understanding farm management, the marketing and the finance. Then also we see a skill on crop management, skills in soil erosion, irrigation, and also crop protection. Then also we see under the skills, we see that there is livestock management. So we see knowledge on animal husbandry, we see breeding and health. Then they also have to have the skill of entrepreneurship, the ability to start and manage an agricultural business. Then on the resources, maybe we can equip them with agricultural training programs, courses and workshops on modern farming practices, online platforms, access to market information, the weather forecasts and best practices. And also we see maybe mentorship programs, guidance from experienced farmers and agricultural experts. Maybe the experienced farmer should also be open to sharing to the young farmers, and also the experienced farmers maybe have a negative attitude towards the youth that they are not ready to learn, and yet they're actually willing to learn. But agricultural cooperatives, these collective organizations for marketing, purchasing, and knowledge sharing, I think that would really help. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much, Lydia, for that. And as we near the closure of the conversation, Goodluck, I want you to speak to the idea of the market. And I know these days there is a lot of information and singing about the African Continental Free Trade Area, the East African Community, COMESA, and so on. But many times we've seen agriculture produce from Uganda being denied access, for example, to Kenya, to Southern Sudan, and sometimes to Tanzania. What is the marketing strategy? But two, if Ugandan producers indeed go ahead and they produce in excess, do they have a guarantee of where to sell their produce, having had that particular harvest that will be certainly what they look at as a gateway for their economic emancipation and transformation? Yes, Goodluck.
I really agree with you that the issue of market is not actually a bigger problem. I think that time when we had the issues of countries reacting was because of the aflatoxin. Okay, so my English there, where we let, I think it is the process of the storage that was making us lose. Aflatoxins is when a grain gets those molds. When you keep them, for example, like in a cold place, And then at the end of the day, when you find the storage, you find that the food is, because it can have really issues. But when you go, for example, to Soroti, on your way, you see a machine that can process as much, remove the aflatoxins, and even in other regions. So that one looks like it's no longer a problem. But it was also coming because of the way our people do things, wanting quick money, but failing through these other steps. For example, where do you store your food? How do you handle your food? Those were the challenges. And I think for me, I don't know whether we should be taught, but like everything seems to need to be taught. I think our farmers need to be told that when you mishandle food, there is no market, there is no one. And for example, those pictures where you see people, drying food on the roadside in places that are very dusty. Some of us we seem to be fine with it, but it cannot. For example, if you have seen now coffee, the market out there in Europe or wherever, they are saying they must follow the coffee bean from the farm, how it is handled, how it is dried, and all that. So people, there's a way we like cutting corners as Ugandans. Our farmers must know that those things are detrimental. You will cry about price if no one is buying from you, but it will be because some of us want to cut corners. There's when we are doing Artemisia as a product. I mean, as a plant. My colleague who is near that place in Tunga Mukabali must be remembering. And one of the tycoons, Charles Mbide of M10, is the one who had invested in so much money. And people would, because there are other plants that look like the same, so people would pack the same in the other things and the artemisinin in the same things they were using to pack. And we ended up losing, and the factory closed. And that was the chapter that we failed to tap in making malaria medicine, something like that. So for me, the question is that what we value, do we value the market? Do we value cutting corners? That's where we have a challenge. When you go to Soroti, my colleague was talking of having things to use in the factories in Tunga. In Soroti, there is the fruit factory. I'm seeing another factory being built on Yumbe Road as you go to Bidibidi refugee camp. It's a big one for mangoes. The question is, are we ready? Do we have what to feed in those factories and then have what to sell for people to eat? So for me, the market is there, but we must work on those things that really are hidden in us as Ugandans, where you find that the discipline in us doesn't stop on the roads, or the indiscipline, it also sometimes goes to those factories, to the farmers, when they want to cheat, add stones, add a few things that disturb. Otherwise, the market is so huge. We have Uganda Airlines. Now we can take. The wars are becoming wars around the world. I don't know what is happening. And therefore, as people are running away, if we are stable, we will feed those people. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you so much. Good luck for that insight about the market, and indeed it's a very big one. Lydia, finally, as we get out of here, what more changes do you think can happen in the agriculture sector to guarantee sustainability in production, and indeed to make sure it continues to be that backbone of the economy like it is? Yes.
Can you get me?
Yes, I hear you.
Yeah. So maybe some of the changes we could take, for example, the sustainable farming practices. So promoting these practices like organic farming, and also we see on the on embarking on the climate resilient agriculture. So this is, we should implement climate smart agricultural practices and technologies, and also the value chain development. So we strengthen these connections between the farmers, the processors, and the markets. And also we should have agricultural innovation, encouraging research and development of new technologies and practices. And also we should have farmer support services. These providing extension services, advisory services, and capacity building among the farmers, and also agricultural policy reforms. So we develop these reforms that support the agriculture, that support sustainable agriculture, the food security, and farm welfare, and also using the modernized technology through agriculture. I think those are some of the things I can highlight to improve.
Research, extension services, sustainable practices, and so on and so forth. Really advises that it will really help to boost the agriculture sector. And lastly, good luck. If you have any other recommendations for the agriculture sector, kindly, as we get out of here.
I think I agree with everyone who says funding should be increased to be 10% of our budget, and we should open up real markets in some of these countries in order to earn these dollars and these euros. We will not wish. To the young people, stop wishing, stop shouting, stop saying somebody else will do it. If you don't do it, nobody will do it. If you don't want to dirten your hands, at least open a market somewhere, put middlemen who will supply you. If you say you don't have capital in agriculture, have faith and move to the banks. Bank of Uganda has put an agriculture facility credit. It is being run in different banks. So here we have stop lamentation and do something. And then about climate change. As we build more roads, my cry is that let's not have bare roads. Let's plant either trees or fruit trees on this, because this is government land that is so on these highways. You move 200, 300 kilometers bare road. We can do something. If we plant fruit trees, then the other thing that also annoys a little bit is that Egypt, every day they have a direct flight that comes to buy here fruits every morning. Every morning. In the night, you see Egyptians crisscrossing our markets buying these things. And then they bring packed juice here and we buy these things for 10,000, 8,000. If we continue lamenting, I think that's where we have a challenge. But if we are paying these roads, compensating people, widening our roads with those mark stones, why don't we put something so that we are able to benefit? Otherwise, climate change is real. The desert is going to come. In some places, the sun can hit you when you are putting on shoes. You just don't know where to run to. So we have to do something. When you go to Roti, there is a place called Awoja. Awoja is like a swampy place. When you go there, the wind is just moving. You can see that we have. For me, lastly, actually, Mulissa, as we go for campaigns, I wish our voters mark some of these things. and they ask the real question. And they ask candidates, what are you going to do for us in agriculture? Let somebody make a contract with the voters. But these things of shouting here and there, for me, and the lamentation, just does it. You feel like we are hopeless. We can only be hopeful when we see a candidate saying, I will bring a tractor. I'm going to add at least 10 youth in the export led in my region, in agriculture. And then after 5 years, we shall ask them, tell us, you promised to either give us 10 youth per year, and maybe now you have 100 you have put in that market, and then there'll be a reason to celebrate. But every other time we go for elections, same lamentation, same work. So for me, I wish the media, even here at Civic Space TV, that please, let's make a contract with these people, and especially in agriculture. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Goodluck. I think, I don't know that you still hear me, but I seem not to hear you anymore. But thank you so much for your thoughts and indeed for making time for the conversation today, really important insights towards the sector. Lydia Alupo, thank you so much for your thoughts and for making time to the conversation. You've done us so well. And indeed, Edward Natamba from SOWIPA in absentia, thank you so much for your thoughts and for making time for the conversation and indeed for sharing us the insights you have to share with us. And certainly to our audience, thank you so much for keeping it Civic Space TV and more specifically to you involved in agriculture. We at Civic Space TV, we value your contribution to this country. We value your contribution to the economy and indeed to the lives of our people. Special thanks to the technical team and indeed to the Center for Constitutional Governance and all our partners who make sure that we are here every other time to make a contribution to the events, activities, and progress of our country. I am Philip Mulissa, and may I say good evening, and may you have freedom always.